communities and families safe. So we're going to move on to the show. Thank you all for attending, and let's get this show on the road. Welcome to the Nonprofit Report, your weekly update on nonprofit organizations, issues, and leaders. I'm your host, Mark Oppenheim, and today is part of our two-part conversation with Goodwill of Southern California and their work on transforming lives through the power of work and employment. Our guests are Luis Castanon, Senior Director of Strategic Operations for Goodwill of Southern California, Alejandro Garcia, Career Service Specialist, and Alicia Vargas-Pharis at ARCO Brand Management. And a reminder to Zoom attendees that we'll take 3 snap polls during the show and we'll announce results. And questions submitted through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen will be included in our discussion. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm so happy that you're here as part of this two-part discussion. We had a previous discussion on Tuesday with your chief executive, board chair, the person in charge of impact. And now we get to talk with the front line. And so I'd like to actually start with you, Alejandro, because you've experienced the program. You are now helping others to experience the program. You're the star. You're the star. You get top billing. So could we talk a little bit about your experience and how you have you entered the program, the conditions under which you entered the program, and just give us a brief description of your arc to where you are today.
Okay, welcome. I'm glad to be here today. Thank you for this opportunity. I came in through the program, as a trainee. I was basically in prison for quite some time, for 5 years prior to me coming back to the workforce. But one of the things is that I believe, like Goodwill stands, changing lives through the power of work is one of the things that is very, very powerful and essential. I believe in that today very much due to the fact of the impact that it had with me. When I was a kid, my mother had to work 2 jobs, in order to sustain the home. And due to that, I wasn't able to pretty much have that communication with her. And I started seeking out something else, for that attention that I was lacking at home. Therefore, I ventured out to, gangs and, pretty much, like crime and different things like that just took my life to, for the worse. I was heavily involved in different like criminal activities. Therefore, just to try to help my mom out, to make ends meet, due to the fact that she wasn't there growing up, was something very powerful. Therefore, I believe that if she would have been able to have employment in a good paying job, something that would allow her to, pretty much have the time and flexibility to work with us and be in our lives a little bit more, things would have been a lot different. So I believe in the power of work of transforming lives, because it's a ripple effect. If the parent has, stability, is able to provide for their family, without having to, work their fingers to the bone, it's one of the things that would help, pretty much break a cycle of pretty much of, poverty, taking people outside of that, giving them a better education. So I believe it all starts with that, with work. I ended up, coming to somewhat of my senses when I didn't have one, due to the fact that my mother was pretty much my conscience when I didn't have one. And everything that I was doing was filtered through that. When I came to Goodwill, it was because it was like my last resort. After being in prison, nobody was giving me the opportunity to work. I wanted to work. I was going to school. I was trying to do the best that I possibly could. But because of my background, people weren't not giving me the opportunity. I decided, I joined the program. I was incarcerated at the time when I was introduced to the program and I heard about Goodwill. I said, well, let me go into this, like last resort. One of the last things I was in kind of borderline, going back into the same thing because I didn't know anything aside from that. So I went into the program. I learned about it. I was trained through the National Retail Federation with Goodwill. They gave me the opportunity to work at one of their stores. And, something inside of me just sparked the interest to want to help somebody else. And, I was provided with that platform, through, working at the stores where we generate money to pretty much provide for these programs.
Right.
You know, so I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll do it, you know, and just because the effect that it had on me, I wanted to do that so we could pay it forward to somebody else. I seen the impact that it had on me, and I decided to go back to school, became a drug and alcohol counselor. I started, you know, working at different places, you know, just as a volunteer, just to gain more insight within myself. In prison, I was a substance abuse mentor for pretty much all my peers that were there, and so it kind of started, you know, to motivate me to push further. And now that I'm working at the WCE section of Goodwill, and being in the front lines, I'm pretty much now helping run the program that I came through. You know, giving them, you know, the double side of it, you know, as a participant and also, you know, as somebody that's in a position to help and transform their lives. So with Goodwill, I was able to get that platform and just move forward from there. But you know, yes,
It's so interesting how you describe your own journey, right? It's the loneliness of a child who cannot have enough time, the time that they need with their mother, and then that loneliness driving you to create associations that were not great associations, and then through that next phase of your life, figuring that out, and then reshaping your associations, reshaping your attitudes, coming out and not being given a chance based on that change until you find community again. Community is so important. Luis, when you look at how Goodwill shapes your work, do you take the kind of story that Alejandro speaks about the community, the whole idea of peer counseling and this idea of creating a support network? Is that how you function, or is it more transactional? Because there is a transactional element here, as Alejandro said, right? You know, you're working in retail. You know, people are buying and selling, but there's also this community piece. How do you deal with that?
I mean, excuse me, I think we do both, right? I think there is a transactional piece to this because we do operate under a federal system. So we have certain outcomes that we have to meet, certain things that we have to complete for our funding, but there is also the transformational piece of our work. And that transformational piece really starts with people who have lived that experience, right? If we're really going to transform people, transform lives, and motivate individuals for a higher purpose, they need to be able to see themselves in others. And the way that you see yourselves in others is by seeing yourself with someone who went through that experience, who shares that experience with you and can talk to you about those challenges that you're going to face, right? Because it's not easy, especially, you know, any of the barriers that our participants face, everything from just experiencing homelessness, food insecurity, folks who have been formerly incarcerated, right? All of these are just heavy things to deal with on a regular basis, and navigating systems, navigating doors that sometimes are closed to you because people just make assumptions of who you are. All those things really, you know, bog people down, and people, you know, sometimes lose motivation because of that. But if they're able to see that someone who was homeless, who was formerly incarcerated, was able to transform, gain a job, move along their own career pathway, and start to make those positive changes for themselves and their families, that's really, I think, what we try to create within our program. So there are our programs have that cohort model within them as well. We have workshops that everyone sort of participates, and we really try to create that network with individuals. We are looking at different behavioral curriculums as well, and really with just the purpose of trying to figure out what might work for different individuals, different populations, so that we can get to that transformational piece as well.
And then you have this whole issue of demand versus supply, right? You have huge numbers of people who need jobs, particularly now in this COVID era. We have a huge prison population, which means that every year, a huge number of people are exiting. And many of them, like you, Alejandro, are trying to change their trajectory. But the supply of jobs always trails behind. And there are attitudes that we all have. There are fears and uncertainties that we all have if we're employers. Alicia, how do you deal with that? You're part of an organization that has a mass franchise model. And so you're actually acting as an interlocutor. How does that work over at ARCO?
So our franchise model is pretty interesting. It's pretty unique. They actually own every site. And so in that respect, they handle the hiring process as well. From our perspective, we've been working with Goodwill since 2016. And throughout that time, we've had an opportunity to educate our franchisees. That's the first line of our commitment with Goodwill, is right to help educate our franchisees and then have them and their staff educate the community. So it's kind of it's a very interesting, very detailed process, if you will. So when our franchisees are learning a little bit more about the caliber of candidates that come from Goodwill with the training processes, et cetera, it really invites for a lot more hiring. So from our perspective, we actually got to meet a lot of really great people in this whole campaign. We met Miss Robbie, who was formerly homeless. And she's perfectly imperfect is what I call her, because you hear her story. She's so engaging, and she shared her story now, how she helps educate everyone, from her perspective that touches Goodwill through her LA Rise program. And so she shares that knowledge when we go and we talk about the campaign that we do every October. And it was just, it's really impactful, because these testimonials is really what helps educate our franchisees, who then have the hiring opportunities with Goodwill.
So when you look at our prison population here in the United States, we have a huge issue every single year. How do we deal with that in a way where, if prison becomes a communal death sentence where you can't get a job,
Yeah.
right? You can't vote, you can't operate normally. We are creating our own recidivism problem, because when people have no other choice, they're going to take the only choice that's left. So how do we create more choice in this society? How do we get there? And I'm just going to throw it open to anybody who wants to answer this, because I don't think that any of us here have the solution. But how do we approach the problem? Luis, you want to?
Yeah, I could do a little bit of that. I've worked in criminal justice reform since 2008. And, even just working with things like ban the box, right, which is that question that just limit someone's even ability to apply to jobs.
Yeah, the box is the little check box that is almost on most employment forms that say, have you ever been involved with the criminal justice system? And as soon as yes, it's like, I'm sorry, we don't have any jobs anymore.
Yeah, my first job out of college was as a recruiter, and I remember some of the conversations where someone would click that box and the training was like, well, you just put that application at the bottom, right? We'll call them if we need to, but if not, it doesn't happen. And there's something wrong with that, because there's people who have just great skills, are highly motivated, want that chance, but they're oftentimes not given even the opportunity to compete fairly for a job in that way. But I think to your question about how do we help solve for this, it really comes down to a systems change, right? How do we change systems for them to be more efficient and effective to what we actually need on the back end to get individuals with high skills into the jobs that we need? Because we have a lot of jobs, but we don't have the individuals that necessarily have those skills. If we were able to start some career pathway programs within prison systems, within jails, right, within all those different systems, and really train individuals for the jobs that we need, I mean, that would help solve a lot of those issues. They would become highly skilled individuals who are then able to exit out. And then on the other side is, how do we work with employers to create that culture of learning and support, so that they know someone is coming to their company, and they might have barriers. They might have a parole officer, or they might have to, check in with someone, or they might even have an ankle monitor that they have to charge every 8 hours, right? Just really giving them the opportunity to know what to expect, so that they can then make those decisions and help to create that supportive culture within those companies. And that's, I think, what Goodwill is doing, because not only are we an employer, but we're also a workforce, I would say the largest workforce development agency here in Southern California. So we're able to work with our colleagues, our employer colleagues, but we're also able to work with the community to try to make those changes within the system and within our programming as well. Not only are we practitioners of what we practice, but we also try to promote policy and advocacy change as well through the different avenues that we have, because we do have that brand recognition, that employer sort of title as well. So it gives us the ability to sort of do both.
Alejandro, if I'm an employer and I'm just worried, none of my family have ever been in prison. And I am really concerned. I'm a little frightened. I look at my business and I'm thinking, I don't have a lot because I'm a small business, and what I have to really guard. I don't want to take any risks. I've got enough risks right now. What would you say to me if you're sitting across from me and I'm looking at this form, the box is on the form, you filled out the box truthfully, and you're talking with me, which often doesn't even happen. What would you say to me?
I would say that, we all have made mistakes in our past, and I'm pretty sure we all have seeked for forgiveness, and we are really remorseful for what we've done. So basically what I would do is I would like to be forgiven. I'm pretty sure somebody else would like to have that same opportunity to be forgiven. We've all done something in our past that we might not be happy about, might not be something that's just turned into turmoil, and we want to seek forgiveness from somebody else that we might have hurt. And just how I would want somebody to forgive me, I'm willing to forgive somebody else. And it's kind of like in a way of saying, what, if we're able to, seek out for that forgiveness, because we know that we've messed up before and we've all fault, but, we've also, seen for redemption to be better, and we want to be forgiven. So to me, the biggest thing would be think about yourself in a time when you've done something that you wanted to be forgiven for because you're truly remorseful and you've never went and you will not go back to doing the same thing. All you want to do is grow from that experience. So to provide that support within each other, just to move forward. That's probably one of the answers I would give the person, just so they could understand that it's not just the business, it's also a person that you're dealing with. And just to see different avenues when it comes to that. What can we do? What can we work with? Are we able to pretty much have something said between you and I that's going to help us build trust? And maybe that'll change the dynamic of the person, how he thinks, maybe the way that he hires us as well. Those are just some of the things that I might bring up to the employer if I'm sitting before them, and if they want to ask me about that question.
And Alicia, if I'm a franchisee and I go to you and I say, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you're messing with my business. You're asking me to take a risk. I'm just not, Alejandro is a nice guy, but come on. There are a lot of unemployed people. Good for you, but you're messing with me, right? You're messing with my business.
Yeah, so I think this is where the education process comes into play, and this is why we love partnering with Goodwill at ARCO. So we got to know, again, we got to know a lot of the franchise, we got to get to know a lot of the candidates from Goodwill, as well as the people that work behind the scenes at Goodwill. I think that their program is pretty robust at Goodwill. I think that if people learned a little bit more about the rehabilitation program that they have, and how well thought of the candidates that you ultimately get are, right? I think that's a big piece that I think is missing that maybe people don't know about. I can tell you from our perspective, one of the first people that I met personally, Robert Dixon, we heard his story and there was not a dry eye in the room. His best day was, and he was a second chance person, right? So he was a second chancer is what we called him. And his best day that he said was the day that he got to write his first rent check on his own. And that he was in his 40s, right? How great is that? Something like that. And if you can provide something like that for somebody, and he, from what I understand, he's still at it. He is still really driven. He's moving up the ranks. he's a testimonial to the type of people that Goodwill helped to train. And from that perspective, as an employer, that's what you're looking for, you know? And again, it just goes back, it's a testament to Goodwill and the processes that they go through. That's why we really believe in them, because they really do help the community. And that's what ARCO is all about. We really, really want to focus on the community because that's where we do business, right? So if everyone's employed, everyone's happy, right? So it's a matter of education really for I think the employers, you know, and I think that if they just take the time to learn a little bit more, and maybe that would help ease their tension about, or inhibitions about hiring someone.
You know, it is good that when we took our poll, 90% of the respondents said that they are aware of Goodwill's workforce development work. I think that you're all making two fundamental points. One is very obvious. We talk about forgiveness, but it's easier to talk about it than to actually do it. And so we really have to reach deep within ourselves. If we're talking about second chance, if we're talking about forgiveness, if we're talking about paying your debt for society, do we really believe it in terms of how we act? And I think we all individually have to query ourselves. But there's another piece here, which is the redefinition of what patriotism is. If we are going to make America stronger, we have to make America stronger in a way that includes all of our people, that thinks about strengthening communities in ways that causes each of us to take a risk on behalf of the country and on behalf of people. You know, I'm a white guy, right? I've not been in prison. I need to take a risk. I need to reach across and try to understand somebody else's life and help, right? So that they can help me, right? We've got to hang together. We are a social compact. And I think, Luis, that's kind of what Goodwill, its partners, Alejandro, your partner as well, everybody who is part of this, right? The donors, the people who buy from Goodwill, who treat their goods, we're all partners. We can pull together, can't we?
You know, I was gonna, something that you said there is that I think what you're getting at is that everyone's very unique, right? We're all unique individuals, and we require unique solutions for the things that we're going through. And sometimes, you know, our systems, especially at the federal level, they're very prescribed, almost cookie cutter in that way. And I think what is very unique about Goodwill, you know, the fact that we can generate some income from our stores to support this work, but also that we can partner with, you know, ARCO and other employers, and that individuals also give to us, it gives us the ability to be flexible and to provide tailored, specific solutions for individuals, because our workforce system, our federal workforce system, only it's only a 1-year program, right? So you have to exit and enter within that 1 year. And let's say you enter 5 months into the program, we can't extend it. You have to finish within 5 months. I think the flexibility that we have with Goodwill and the flexible funding that, you know, donors and everyone supports us and grants, is that it gives us the ability to look at someone and not think about a prescribed timeline, but really look at them and figure out, okay, what's the best solution for you? And is it going to be a 3-month solution, or is it going to be a 1-2 year solution? But we're going to be there for that person and make sure that they're receiving the support that they need. Because sometimes the support is, you know, I just need a grocery cart, or I need, my car broke down. Our federal system doesn't allow for someone's card to just get paid like that, you know, but we're able to fix someone's card because we know that they're on that right path. And we know that that individual just needs that extra support, and that flexibility from those discretionary dollars really gives us the ability to serve individuals for more than just a year or a few months that we have within some of the prescribed systems.
We got a comment that was really interesting coming from Stacey Buchanan, who said that there's a risk when you hire anyone, right? That they're not going to be able to do the job. They turn out to make claims that are not true. Somebody who is really putting themselves on the line, who is going out to interview after interview after interview, who is seeking to transform, you have a motivation there that is just irreplaceable. And Alejandro, you lived that. How did you end up processing that, and how were you able to communicate that motivation to others?
The way that I'm able to communicate that to others is to pretty much, I tell them, everybody, when we're younger, when we're kids, we think about what, they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? What is it that you ultimately want to do for the rest of your life, right? And so one of the things that I try to do is to help spark that and have them reconnect with that side of them, so they can take them back to that, to their true selves, to what, like the purity that they had when they were younger. So just to have that initiative, like within them, that's enough for them to move forward. And sometimes we provide that support, we provide that tailored, support, like Luis was talking about, that we could just help them, in the areas where it's needed. A person might have, they all have different needs, like you stated, and just addressing these needs, give them the support. As long as you have some support, somebody that's there to provide that for you, you have this network and you feel confident to move forward. Now, if you're surrounding yourself with people that are, pretty much are not doing this, and they're stuck in the same thing and that rut, but you have that inside of you, like you want to be better, it only takes like one word, one touch, just something to get you out of that. And, as long as we provide that support, to provide the network, we're able to move forward with that. I had individuals that have come, I work with people that are currently incarcerated or had just gotten out of prison. And one of the things that they struggle with the most is getting employment, right? But the way the system has set it up is to where, they ask you, well, have you been convicted of a felony? Have you done this? Do you have experience or whatnot? And a lot of times, because of the way the system has been built, participants, they don't want to give themselves the chance. So I tell them, how can you not give yourself a chance and expect somebody else to give it to you? You got to give yourself that chance first, so, and just having, conversations with them, just to pretty much address certain things and help guide them and give them that support of confidence. I believe that's one of the biggest impacts, because it has to start within yourself.
Alicia, I saw that you were nodding vigorously. I'd love for you to comment on this from the perspective of the interlocutor between employers and people who are job seekers and Goodwill. And then, Luis, I'll give you the last word. Alicia, could you just comment on this whole idea of how do you deal with this this question of advocating for a program that will cause somebody to take a risk with their business, but a good risk?
A good risk. Yes. Well, I think Alejandro is a great testimonial for that. I mean, he wants to work. The first piece of this puzzle is wanting to work, right? That right there, I think, changes the dynamic of, is this person, what's the history of this person? If the person really wants to go in there and do their job, do it well, there you go. That's what the best you can ask for. I mean, that's why we run campaigns like the Do Goodwill campaign that we have, that we do every October, because we do believe in people like Alejandro. We do believe in people like Miss Robbie. We do believe in people like Robert Dixon. We want to make sure that these people are able to get the training that they need and do good in the community. That's what it comes down to.
And I think part of the point is that these people are not the exception. Right?
They're not.
When you're coming out and you are motivated, that's not the exception. That is the rule. There's a lot that is left.
Absolutely.
Still available. We just took two polls, and one was the assessment of the biggest problem faced by job seekers, and the other was, and we asked the same questions, what are the biggest issues faced by job providers?
Right.
What was interesting here is that on the job seeking piece, there's lack of educational skills, the comp is too low.
Yes.
Few jobs are, it kind of was pretty even, although few jobs being available was the biggest issue. Now, what's interesting is that when we inflected that to people who had jobs to provide, it was all about skills. And that is Goodwill's whole bailiwick, right, Luis? So could you talk about that aspect? If we have people out there with the will, like Alejandro, and if people who have jobs are seeking skills, talk a little bit about how you shape your programs to fill that gap as well.
Well, I mean, that truly is the future of education, right? Is that how do we combine work and learning at the same time? And Goodwill has actually, through discretionary funds and through some of the funding that we get through our partners and donations, we were able to create an apprenticeship program. So we are now a registered apprenticeship program provider with the U.S. Department of Labor and with California Division of Apprenticeship Standards. And so we are putting individuals in jobs, training them right through a curriculum for a year, which helps with retention on the employer side. But then we give them those skills, and then they become then an expert in that profession or in that occupation once they're completed. But we really wouldn't be able to do that because there isn't a lot of funding to explore or to innovate or ideate when it comes to trying to solve these really complex issues of education and skills attainment. And for us, having the flexibility to just try, and we actually, the apprenticeship program is the third iteration of several things that we tried that didn't work. And within the workforce system, they don't give you funding to not work, right? Everything has to work. And so for us, the flexibility to try different solutions, to try to really solve the complex problems that employers have and that job seekers have, that's really what we do. And every donation, everything that you buy at the store, right? All those things that you provide, your support that you provide when you go to Goodwill helps us to really look at this differently. And we cover 3 counties. We're in LA, San Bernardino, and Riverside. From Antelope Valley to Victorville, right? We're in all these communities. And so each community is very different. Each community has a very unique solution that they need help with. And we really try to be that conduit, right? That intermediary to help connect systems, connect partners, because we've been here for over 100 years and we're going to be here for another 100 years, right? Being sort of a steward within the region. And just everyone's support of our stores, of our workforce programs, donating, all that really goes to help to solve these really complex problems that we have within our own community, but also just largely within our country as well.
If I may, though, too, I think that one of so Goodwill is more than just second chance, more than homeless. It's also vets. So veterans are actually helped out as well. And so I know that for our constituents, it's a big deal, right? And that's part of what makes Goodwill so appealing. It crosses off everyone's personal wants and needs that they want to help. And I think that that's something that people really don't know about. So if you're a corporation like ARCO, I mean, we really care about the vets. We really care about second chances. Again, anyone that's in the community, right? And the vets are a big part of our community, which we really haven't talked about today. But I think that's an important piece that we should really, educate ourselves on and understand that they encompass everybody. They really don't turn anyone away. And that's what makes, ARCO and Goodwill, great partners, right? So.
We have the beginnings of a new show. I'd like to thank you all. Luis Castanon, Senior Director of Strategic Operations for Goodwill of Southern California. Alejandro Garcia, Career Service Specialist, who's gone through the program himself. And Alicia Vargas-Pharis of ARCO Brand Management. Thank you so much for your insights. And I guess the message here is give to Goodwill.
Yes.
Products to Goodwill, buy from Goodwill. It's the small actions that can help to heal. Employ through Goodwill. The work that you're doing is so valuable to a truly strong and inclusive America. Thank you so much. That's the Nonprofit Report. Attendees, thank you for coming, and we'll see you again on Tuesday.